Imagine you need to work at a kitchen at like 40 degrees Celsius, right? Of course, you love study, right? You can't wait to go back to school. They were telling my parents, okay, maybe you have to teach Ray how to be more humble. Yeah, I don't give a fuck. And I thought, oh, he's pretty smart, right? But I'm not that stupid, right? If he could start a company, why couldn't I?
Ray Chen is the co-founder and CEO of 9gag, one of the world's largest social media powerhouses, attracting over 200 million monthly visitors.
I'm Ray Chen, I'm CEO and co-founder of 9gag.
The man who turned memes into a global phenomenon, 9gag has become the hub for internet culture, transforming how we share and discover jokes, memes, and videos. If you've ever laughed at viral moments like Distracted Boyfriend, Success Kid, or Hide the Pain Harold, you have Ray to thank for that. But Ray's influence doesn't stop there. His new venture, Memeland, is redefining crypto with a peak market cap of over $1 billion. So, how did a young entrepreneur turn internet humor into a global empire and now dive headfirst into the new internet? Today, we uncover his untold stories, his childhood, early odd jobs, failed business ideas, and life advice for the younger generation. Now, let's get started. You make it look easy with Ray Chen. Morning, Ray.
GM.
I could not be more excited for this. Myself, my team behind the cameras, we've been consuming meme and 9gag over the last, I think, 15 years. It accompanied us in a lot of our early days when we were very bored in the military. So thank you for keeping us sane. I want to start this off by asking you a personal question. For those that are closest to you, how do you think that they would describe Ray?
Annoying. I think since primary school, I think all the teachers, they feel like, oh, Ray, he's pretty proud, he's pretty cocky, right? Maybe, I mean, they were telling my parents, okay, maybe you have to teach Ray how to be more humble. Right? That was the comment from the teachers, right? But at the time, I didn't feel that I was like cocky and stuff. Yeah, but maybe because of the way that I talk, people think that I'm confident or maybe overconfident. Yeah. I think that would be what my friends say. Yeah, annoying and stuff. Yeah.
Has that affected you when you were young?
Yeah, I don't give a fuck. Yeah. Yeah. I think that the thing is I think even since early childhood, right, I actually don't care too much about what other people think, because I believe that what I'm doing is right. Right. Of course, that leads to a lot of like painful lessons, right? But I think I don't really care about what other people think too much. Yeah.
I read that in your early childhood, you grew up in a public house in Hong Kong.
Yes. Yeah.
What was your relationship with money early on?
Relationship with money is I have no relationship with them. Right? I come from a humble family. My father was a cook at one of the fast food restaurant. My mother was a housewife, right? And that's why we are always kind of like the resources at our home is not that much, right? But we have a very loving family. Right? I have a younger brother and a younger sister, right? My parents are very loving. They spend a lot of time with us. They care about us, right? So I'm one of the lucky ones. Yeah.
And I read that very early on, you and your brother said that at 15, you guys wanted to start earning your own money already.
Oh yes, because that's actually what our parents require us to do, right? Because my father, he believes that, hey, in order to make the kids to love studying, send them to work so they know that studying is actually easy, right? So that's why they force us, not force, right? They encourage us to go to work since 15, which was the legal age of working in Hong Kong. Yeah, so we started to have go to like vacation job, working at summer vacation, and then start to give like tutorials, tuition class to other students and stuff like that. Yeah.
One thing that intrigued me was you did many early odd jobs, right? And we'll go through a few. The first one you mentioned, you were a kitchen hand at a fast food restaurant.
Yes.
What were you doing there?
Yeah. Basically, you do everything, right? At the back, right? Of course, not cooking, right? Otherwise, people would have died, right? So we just do all this like cleaning and stuff, right? And imagine you need to work at a kitchen at like 40 degrees Celsius, right? Of course, you love study, right? You can't wait to go back to school, right? So I would say that my father's theory is right. Imagine if my first job was like, at a good like office and then chilling and stuff, watching YouTube, right? Then I don't think I would study hard. Yeah.
And from kitchen, you were a librarian.
Yes. Oh, that is actually a better job already because in Hong Kong, every summer the government library they actually will recruit a lot of like students to be the summer intern, right? And then you have to apply and then go through a few interviews and stuff. And then I'm lucky to get into one of them and work at the library. Oh, because I love reading books, right? So it's
Yep.
like a heaven for me.
Yep.
So yeah, it's good to meet friends and study and also have air conditioning. Yeah.
And the last one I've got to ask, you intern at a Taoist temple.
Yes.
Tell me about this.
Oh, that one is also an interesting experience, right? Because after working 2 years at a fast food restaurant, fast food kitchen, right? I don't want to work in the kitchen anymore. Right? That's why I applied for jobs that sit at office. And then one of the jobs was from a Taoist temple. Right? And then I didn't know what it does, what it did, right? So I just applied. At the time, they require someone to type for them, like information input and stuff like that. And I can type quite fast, right? That's
Yeah.
why I applied for that job. Yeah, and it's very funny because other than typing, you actually have to help them with some like festival stuff. And then there are a lot of like Chinese festival where you kind of like worship your ancestor and stuff. Then you have to write the relationship between the
Yes.
guy who is
Yes.
worshiping and also the guy who was dead, right?
Right.
So at that time, I actually knew a lot of this like traditional relationship, like your father's son and mother and whatever, right? And then you actually have a name for those guys.
Yes.
Unlike like in English, right, it's always uncle and auntie, right? You in Chinese, there are all kind of relationship, right? So that was a funny experience. Yeah, I wouldn't say funny, right? It's an interesting experience. Yeah.
And I think in the early days, you became a news anchor. You went to the legal department of a bank. But one thing I noticed was throughout this, you lasted maybe, I think in your words, 4 to 12 months and you quickly moved on already. What were you looking for?
I studied law in Hong Kong, right? And then I didn't study hard, that's why I didn't become a lawyer. But after graduation, at that time, it's almost like FOMO. It's like fear of missing out because all your classmates went on to study PCL, which is like the professional degree, right? If you want to become a lawyer in Hong Kong, right? That at that time, I couldn't study that because my academic result was bad. Right? So I wanted to still work in a job that can somehow get me back to become a lawyer, right? So I apply for the compliance trainee at a local bank, right? And then, but after working there for like 3 to 4 months, I don't think that's the job that I want to do it for life, right? Because when I look at all my colleagues at the time, they are all studying, right? Because they just try to study and then get out of the bank, right? And because the bank is actually subsidizing that study and stuff, right? So that was not the ideal working environment that I like. Right? So after that, I joined a news station to become an anchor and a reporter, right? Because at the time I thought that news and laws, it seems like very, very relevant, right? Because in the US, in the Western world, a lot of the reporters and anchor, they actually study law, right? So I was like pretty naive to think that, okay, maybe that's a job that I like. And then I worked at a TV station for a year. Right? The good thing is you have a lot of pretty colleagues, right? And the bad thing is you actually, the job's pretty repetitive, right? And also you have to go to work at like 4 a.m., right? So you basically don't have a life, right? And I don't think that's something that I want. So I also left that company after about a year. Yeah.
So from the kitchen to the temple to a legal department, I think this kind of brought us to your early days of the startup world.
Yep.
We hear a lot about the quote unquote successes, but we don't hear about things that never made it out of light, right? You did a electrical appliances review company, a cosmetic reviews company, a online karaoke company. Maybe talk us through like some of those experiences which was most memorable.
Yeah, sure. It's not even a company because we didn't set up a company for all those ideas, right? It all started from after the news reporter job, right? And then I joined an internet company called Anobi, which was a online community for book lovers, right? Again, I love reading books, right? And if I think the equivalent these days is kind of like Goodreads or Douban in China, right? And actually, it was very, very popular at one point, and then it got acquired by HMV, right? But since then, because at that time my boss was very young, and I thought, oh, he's pretty smart, right? But I'm not that stupid, right? If he could start a company, why couldn't I? That's why during my leisure time, I found my younger brother and some friends, and then we started to work on some projects. And then some of the projects are the ones that you mentioned, right? Hey, if people can review books, can they review like cosmetics, right? Because at that time I already got a girlfriend, right? And yeah, I'm a successor. I'm a pretty successful person in life, right? At least I have a girlfriend. Yeah, and then I had a girlfriend. Yeah, so uh, and if you talk to girls, right, and also talk to a lot of my colleagues during the news station, right, at the news station, when they do makeup and stuff, they rely heavily on word of mouth, right? And then it seems so stupid that if why can't you you like this like a base, right? Why can't you just do a review and then you based on your skin type or like and stuff to use to buy right your cosmetic instead of just relying on other people's mouth, right? So that was the idea. Right? But the thing is, my co-founder and I, we're five guys, never do makeup in our lives. Of course, we couldn't understand the problem, right? And then that project didn't work. And then after that, we thought, oh, maybe we can apply the same philosophy, right, in electrical appliances. But the thing is, I mean, people buy appliances when they go to those shops and stuff. They actually don't Google or read the review site that much, right? Maybe because they just buy the one that looks cheap, right? So that one was also failure, right? And then the other idea that we work on is something about like a photo sharing, and then like online karaoke, yeah, stuff like that. Yeah,
How long did each of those experiments last before you knew
maybe
it?
a few months,
A few
maybe a
months.
few months to a year. Yeah, most of the time because we only work on it like in our leisure time, right?
Yeah.
And my partners they still have work. Some of them were still at school,
Yeah.
right? So we couldn't spend a lot of time to work on that. So it's kind of like we work on it part time for a few months or a year. Yeah.
You mentioned about the photo app. I think that was most famously the one that you went to 500 startups for.
Yes, that was the idea that got us into 500 Stops.
Yeah.
We actually used the same idea, apply for Y Combinator. They rejected us, I think, once or twice, right? And then, but 500 Stops, at the time, they started to expand into Asia,
Yeah.
right? So we got in 500 Stops. We are actually their batch number one. Right? They have a batch zero, but that one was like a dry one, dry text. And then we are batch number one. And that kind of like get us into the so-called the real startup world, because at the time in Hong Kong, like 16 years ago, I don't think there were that many startups or internet startups. Yeah.
And do you remember the early days of the photo sharing company? Like, where did it lead to?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think I remember a few things. Right? Number one is when we were applying for Y Combinator, we got an interview, and then PG program asked us, "Hey, why don't you build this on Dropbox, right, instead of building on your own server,
Yep.
right? Because who would trust you guys to give you the photos, right?" I think that was the idea that I remember. That was one of the moment that I remember, right? Because seeing program, seeing Sam Altman, right? I mean, the OpenAI founders, right? In person, it's kind of like starstruck, right? Because you read about them, right, on TechCrunch, on Mashable, on Read Write Web at the time. Yeah, so that was kind of like an interesting experience because you flew over from Hong Kong to Mountain View, right? And then you only have a interview for like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then the other day they said that, oh, you got rejected, and you basically have to fly back, right? So it's like a very memorable experience. And then another experience that I remember is when we were at 500 Stops, we were very cheap. We are still very cheap, right? So we just book all this cheapest like motel and shit, right? And then I think it's like $50 a night, right? With 2 beds and stuff. Yeah, way cheaper than any hotels in Singapore. Yeah, and but 1 week we forgot to renew because we have to stay there for like 3 to 4 months. We forgot to renew, but it was like all full, right? And then we have to book Airbnb nearby. At the time, Airbnb I think is just like a new company, right? So they don't have like that many. They didn't have that many like options or choices for you to pick. So we have to pick some place nearby, which is like a couple house, and then they have a big round bed, and then my 2 other co-founders and I, we actually sleep together for 1 week. Right, so that was like a very memorable experience because at night when you wake up, you actually can touch the thigh of the other guy, right? So when you talk about like, starting your company is like getting married, right? We kind of like push that to the another level. Yeah.
One story that really fascinates me was when you were at 500 startups, you all were still already started with 9gag at the site, right? As you were building this photo app, I remember in the leisure time, you guys would be scrolling 9gag. And I think one investor walked by and like, hey, what's this app that you're working on? And then you guys said, oh yeah, this has like 500,000 users, nothing much. Why was it not obvious that you should be working on 9gag?
Because at the time, we always try to build something more useful, right? And sharing funny picture doesn't seem very useful, all right? I mean, even today, right? Of course, today people talk about memes, meme coins, like it's a thing, right? But in the past, it's just sharing some funny pictures, right? So and also we didn't make a lot of money, right? Because we barely put some ads on the website, right? So that makes us think that, oh, it's a leisure. It's a I would say it's a trial, right? But it's not really a real product because it's not a real company and stuff, right? So we always try to make something more useful, something that seems like it's solving a real problem, right? So we didn't notice that, oh, we actually already started the company that's worth our time.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it baffles me because for those of us who are maybe younger or what, when you grew up in the internet age, you can make money by posting videos, by posting images. Was it really that unobvious? Like, what did VCs say when they saw that you had a site sharing images with, 500,000, 1 million users? What did they say?
I think even at that time, right, Facebook was pretty new, right? Facebook started around, I think maybe 2 to 3 years before us, right? And Tumblr was still very new, right? So I feel like the so-called like social network, right, is social media is what's not a thing, right? When we talk to investors, oh, you have good traffic, right? But how do you make money, right? And then what problem are you solving? Right? I think that was the common sentiment, right? That's why when we after 500 stops and then we started to raise some funding for it, right? We actually talked to quite a lot of investors. They never really got it, right? I think we were lucky to get some funding, right? And most of those investors, they like it not because they like it, right? They like it because their kids know what NIGET is, right? So yeah, I think right now it seems like entertainment. It seems like all these like social app is like one of the biggest category.
Yep.
But in the past, I don't think people thought that way. Yeah.
It's funny because now we think the same when we see like KSI, we see Mr. Beast, we see Feastable. We can't understand it, but they're really, really hot in the VC property right now. In the early days, I don't know if it was obvious to you that 9gag would have been a success, right? There was Imgur, which is almost like a direct, with GIF sharing. There was Cheeseburger Network, Funny Junk, Meme Droid, and all of that had very, very sizable traction. I think back in 2013, you guys were probably 30 to 50 million MAU. They were all around the same size, right? How was competition like in those early days?
I think actually we didn't know there were that many funny websites in the past, right? And that's why the first time that we met Cheeseburger Network, right? They actually wanted to acquire us,
No way.
and then we thought, oh shit, oh we are getting rich, right? And then of course we didn't sell because we think that we could do more with it, right? That's why we applied, we raised for some funding, right? And I think the biggest difference is because we didn't think of it as a business from the beginning. That's why we didn't put that many ads on the website. That's why the user experience is always relatively better. Right? We actually care a lot about the user, care a lot about the community, care a lot about the user experience, right? Even for NIGET. Right. So that probably is one of the reasons why we kind of like continue to grow. Right. That's probably reason number one. And then another thing is most of these websites, they actually didn't really cross-post all their content, right, on like social media. Right? We were one of the first companies that actually integrate with Facebook login. That was called Facebook Connect in the past. Right. And then we started the Facebook page, right? We started the Twitter account, right? So our idea was, hey, instead of asking people to come to our website, maybe we should bring the content, right, to the people. Right. That's why we didn't mind whether we make money from Facebook, whether we make money from Twitter. We post the content to there. Right. So maybe a few of these reasons it explains the philosophy between how to run the company is quite different. And also that may explain why we are still around. And most of those websites, they actually are gone. Yeah.
And in the early days, I think ad revenue wasn't something that was very clear, right? In your words, you mentioned nobody wanted to advertise beside a picture of a joke, right? It reminds me a bit about Twitch and Justin Khan's early days where they struggled with monetization. So what they did was they just pasted anybody who was willing to put ads around their video, right? Do you recall the first few experiments when you all were trying to monetize? How was it like?
Well, it's actually very, very easy. right? Because for us, we just used Google AdSense at the time. And then we were very, very happy that we got like 50K Hong Kong dollars from our first check, right? And then I was like, shit, we don't have to work, right? And then we just have to keep posting funny photos, right? And then I think that was one of the good moments that I remember, right? Another thing is, I think another check size is around like 300K Hong Kong dollars as well, right? And that was a moment that we think, okay, our team can actually work on this full time, right? Because after paying server costs, we can still pay ourselves like 10K Hong Kong dollars a month, right? So we actually can barely can kind of make a living, right? At least can start to make a living, right? So that was another I would say milestone on the revenue side, right? But of course, after doing that, we start to understand, oh, maybe we are sitting on a gold mine in a way that, oh, we actually can get attention, right? And attention means something on the internet, right? So that was how we started to monetize the website a little bit more, and then continue to build Nike as a business. Yeah.
And what baffles me was Hong Kong isn't one of the top markets. Like I think US, Germany, a lot of European countries. How do you, and two parts to this, right? One is scale content, so much so comedy, right? Humor is super hard to scale and localize. And then the second part is like, how do you then monetize if you don't understand the language, you don't know how does ad networks work in those countries?
Yeah, for us, right? Let's talk about the monetization first, right? We are never good at monetization. Not with Nugget, not with Memeland now, right? But the thing is, what we actually didn't think about the money that much, right? It's fun. It's like, let's get more users, right? Let's get more people see the funny pictures and stuff, right? So that the creators, right, and then the people are happy, right? We just want to make people happy, right? Because our company mission was, make the world happier. Yeah, but at the time, there was like more and more like a social media website, and probably because Facebook was growing really, really fast, so we kind of like ride on the Facebook train, right? So that we also get expanded very, very quickly, right? Germany, Brazil, and then a lot of like Southeast Asian countries as well, right? So I think we were kind of like lucky, right? We started something that people like at the right time, where we actually ride on the growth of social media, right? And that was that part, right? And we mainly use all these like ad networks. That means that, okay, you only include some of the cooks on the website, then you don't have to talk to advertisers, right? So of course, like the CPM, the cost per miles, right, from different countries is different, right? But at the time, as long as we pay our bill, as long as we pay ourselves, it's okay, right? Because we have a very small team, right? So that was how we think about monetization and stuff. And meanwhile, for content, yeah, at that time we didn't know why it got popular, right? Later, when we started to install like Google Analytics, right, on the website, we finally see where the traffic come from and then what content that people like, right? Then we started to notice that, maybe we are not that different, right? Especially if the audience is very similar. For example, students in Singapore, students in Hong Kong, students in Brazil, they probably love the same shit, right? And they have the same kind of troubles in life. Oh, how to get a girlfriend, how to get rid of the girlfriend, exam, and then parents are very annoying, right? I hate Monday and stuff like that. It's like the common theme in people or students' life, right? And the time our holders are mostly students, right? That's why they feel like they're connected, right? Because no matter where you are, you have the same troubles, you have the same worries, right? So we see a lot of this content get posted, and then we see a lot of this content get shared, and that's why I think Nugget become a global, let's call it like phenomenon at the time, right? And another funny thing that our holders told us is for Nugget, it actually sounds kind of funny in German. Right, so they thought that this is like a German website, and then the US users, they thought that this is a US website, and then other people from other countries, they all think that this is a US website. So to them, it feels like, oh, how come this website, they don't have that many words, that many texts? So no matter how bad your English is, you can actually understand the photos, right? You can understand why this is funny, right? So those are those were the days when we started, and then start to think that, oh, maybe we are working on something that's meaningful. Yeah.
Who would know that the name 9gag would have resonated with so many people in different countries,
Yeah,
even for yourself?
it's so stupid, right? Because the origin of Nightgat, the name is called
Cantonese slang, right?
Cantonese slang, right? It's like cracking a joke,
Yep.
right? And a lot of the people when we did interview with them, they always say foul language. It sounds like "gao get" or whatever, right? It's like penis, right? In Cantonese, right? So I mean, stuff like this is like a happy coincidence, right? And but I think one other happy coincidence is when you type nine on
Yeah.
Google, the search bar, oftentimes it suggests like Nike, right? Because there are not that many brands that started with number nine, right? So kind of we did a good SEO trick, right? We didn't know, right? So that's why I always feel like we were lucky.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because in the early days of Google indexing, they maybe place numbers before alphabets, right? I think same for Amazon, they chose A because it was the
Yes,
first thing.
but Amazon, I think that they're very strategic,
Yeah.
right? Because Jeff Bezos is way smarter than me, although he has less hair than I do, right? But I think for us, we actually really didn't think about the global market, right? Because the name is very, very local, right? But one thing that I know is we want a short name because as a normal user, right, I don't want to type a long like domain name, right? So that was always our goal in getting that domain name. And of course, another thing that we stick to until today is like it's like we always try to buy the .com, right? Because I feel like okay, people and also the browser they will suggest .com, right? So I think stuff like that it kind of like shape how we continue to build a company, continue to build until like Web3 and stuff. Yeah.
And for most UGC companies, one thing that they face naturally is content moderation. But you've done it in a way that the 9gag team is still so lean, but you guys are in almost every country, and it almost creates this self-reliance of users being the gatekeepers of their own content. How was it easy to inculcate such a culture?
I would say that you have to set the rules early on, right? And so that people kind of know, oh, this is your bottom line, right? You can't violate that, right? Because if you violate that, then you're not welcome here, right? We are not afraid to say that you're not welcome, right? Because honestly, the CPM per user is so low anyway, right? We are not afraid to ban your account, right? Because you didn't give any revenue to us anyway, right? We care about the majority than like one bad user, right? One bad apple. Right, so that was number one, and then number two is of course we rely because they're like different users from different countries, right? So on the stuff on Nightgat, most of the time it's like the common jokes that they all appreciate, right? So you and to be honest, right, for students, they all have a pretty correct mindset towards human life, right? Unlike more like mature older guys, they're all racist, right? So and sexist, right? I think newer generation, they're actually a better person, right? Because they care about the world more than the older generation, right? So that kind of help as well. And of course, when we continue to grow the company, right, we use like, I wouldn't say AI, but more like program, right, to kind of like detect the bad image, detect the bad works and stuff like that. Yeah, but still, I wouldn't say that we do a perfect job, right? Because there are always bad content, right? Yeah. So what we can do is that we do our best and make sure that the bad content, even if they surface in the front page, and then we take it down very quickly.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think you guys did a mixture of disincentives and incentives, right? Either through the badger system or, like you said, banning certain accounts. In that batch with YC, I think you mentioned before, one other company that was in the same batch is, of course, Coinbase. Do you recall the early days where you heard Brian Armstrong's pitch about Coinbase?
No, yeah, it's a very funny experience, right? Because after Farm Just Stops, we raised like some funding, right? And then we joined YC, right? Because at that time, we flew the whole team to San Francisco to work because I wanted the team to taste how it's like to work in Silicon Valley, right? Because we love the atmosphere there. Yeah, and then I had and then I emailed like Sam Altman, right, and also Gary Tang, yeah, and then they were very nice, and then they wanted to talk to us, and then we showed them what we have done, and then what the funding that we raised, the users that we have, right, and then they invited us to join YC, skip the interview, and then we joined YC, and then we kind of have a special deal and stuff, and then we joined YC about like a few weeks late, and the batch started, right, so we were not that close to all our batchmates, right, but looking back, we actually have quite a lot of good companies in our batch, right? For example, like Coinbase, as you mentioned. Also, Instacart, they're also in our batch, and they're all like unicorns, right? For Coinbase, I think one thing that I remember was number one, at that time, Brian was still the solo founder. He's a single founder at the time. Yeah, and number two is he actually asked people to create an account on Coinbase, and once you create it, he actually will send you Bitcoin. Right? I mean, if I were closer to him, I probably wouldn't sit here. Right? I wouldn't. I would just chill in Bahamas. Right? So I think I was like at least like 10 years late. Right? To crypto. Yeah. So that was a fun experience. Right? When I look back. Right? But yeah, it is what it is. Yeah. At least we are not too late. Right? I mean, we are early. Right? That's what I believe. Yeah.
I remember you said that you felt a bit funny because here you are trying to pitch about a company sharing images, and then you thought that was a crazy idea, but someone on the other side had a crazy idea of doing e-money, right?
No, but the thing is, I think Brian he worked at like I think Airbnb.
Yep.
Yeah. So he and
He's an
also maybe
intern at
Google,
Airbnb,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. He is actually pretty connected to the tech world, right? At least better than us, right? Five guys from Hong Kong, right? So I think that may help, right? And at the time, YC was still pretty like US centric. Right now, they accept a lot of like global companies, right? But for us, we're the first Asia company. We are the first company from Asia that they accepted, right? Also, the first one from Asia that 500 stops accepted, right? So somehow we are kind of like the first, right? So we were lucky because we have a good number of users. Yeah. By the time the experience is great, yeah, because I remember uh, uh, the demo day. I mean, normally when you do a pitch, right, you actually you keep talking and talking, right, and people talk about elevator pitch and stuff like that. But actually, when you go on the stage at YC, they actually give you only like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
You can't really talk shit, right, in that 2 minutes, right? But at the time, I mean, a lot of investors would come to demo day and then they would talk to you because you are just one of the YC companies, right? So I think stuff like this, experience like that was like almost like once in a lifetime for us, right? So it's great that we, because of all these like accelerators, we actually kind of like broaden our horizon to know that shit. When we build companies, right, we don't have to just focus on local market. Maybe we can think bigger. We can think global, right? Because at the end of the day, internet is pretty global, right? So maybe that's one of the reasons why Nike continue to be global. And then when we started Memeland, right, we don't think, maybe we should build a local community, and then we actually don't think about that. Yeah.
And I think in those days you mentioned that Hong Kong's startup and VC ecosystem was still quite small, so you had to bring the team into the States. As I was doing my research, I also found a very old account of Ray's SlideShare account, like 15 years ago. I don't even remember. And you were combing through different SlideShares, talking about growth hacking, about tech startups. I don't even remember this account that you had.
I don't remember.
Okay, but
yeah, I think it's just some bullshit that I make up, right, when I have to give sharing, right? Because when after YC, after our funding, right, people think that we were already successful and rich. That's why they asked us to go to like university and maybe sharing and stuff. And then I just copy and paste some other people's like advice, and then we just make some slides, right? I mean, that's what we do, right? Basically, we turn it. I mean, we kind of like recycle the content and then make it easy for people to understand, and then we just share it and stuff like that. Yeah. And at the end of the day, I think knowledge, right, is basically recycle, right? I mean, a lot of the concept these days is actually from like Bible, right, and then stuff like that. Yeah. So yeah, it is what it is. Yeah. I mean, that's why it's not that hard to pretend to be smart, right? It's really, really hard to be really, really smart. Yeah.
quote of the day. One thing that also stood out was, I think since 2015, you keep saying this concept about listening to users. You talked a lot about it in a lot of interviews, a lot of podcasts. Why is that important?
Oh, at YC, the slogan is make something people want, right? Yeah, I think listen to user is basically the make something people want is actually the goal, right? The ultimate holy grail, right? But listen to user is like the first step, because most of the time, most teams when they start an idea, they believe that okay, I'm solving a big problem, right? But all your imagination, right, it crashes, right? When you actually talk to a real user, oh, I make this cool app, and then maybe people didn't even understand why this app works, right, or how, or why they need this app, right? So listen to user or talk to users. I think that's something that is important, right? Because you're building product for the people, right? You're not building product for yourself, right? So somehow we need to talk to more people. Of course, most people they give very bad advice, right? So I think that's another story, right? But I believe that people are really good at telling you their problems, right? They just suck at giving the solutions. That's why we go on to our Discord, we go on to Twitter, right? We listen to people, but most of the time we actually don't listen. We don't follow what our users suggested, right? But by talking to them, you kind of understand their pain point. Then maybe you can create some solution that actually can solve their problems. Yeah.
Do you remember a feature where you guys were convinced that it had to be built, but it never got released, or when you released, it was a total flop?
I think too many. Yeah, I think most of the stuff that we do, yeah, it's kind of like that. Right? So it's almost like, oh, you listen to user, but it doesn't mean that your idea doesn't flop.
Yep.
Yeah, it's almost like it's like a standard practice, but standard practice may not be good enough because once you release your product in the market, right, there are so many like variables. Yeah. The market condition, right? And then the people's need, and then, oh, maybe there are like other competing products and stuff like that. Right? I think a lot of times that's why I think really, really good founders, right? They actually know that other than their skills, I think timing, luck, I think is still needed. Yeah.
And I think that seed when you met Brian at with Coinbase and YC probably has always in the back of our mind that probably led also to what Memeland is today.
No, I don't think so. Yeah, if that actually was a seed, I would just buy Bitcoin. Right, when it's like, I don't know, below 10K. Right, I wouldn't start a company. I think starting a Web3 company is actually pretty stupid. Right, because you have to do so much work. Right, of course, the opportunity is big. Right, but comparing to being an investor, I think starting a company is actually a job that is relatively not relatively. That's absolutely way more difficult. Yeah.
One thing that I think a few Web2 companies that went into Web3, Twitter is one, Reddit is one as well. It seems like it was a external decision, but my hypothesis is internally they already saw a large user base who was on Web3, so that became a natural extension. Was it the same for 9gag?
No, I actually see that people don't give a fuck about Web3. Right? I started Web3 because I was in Web3. And then I thought, shit, this is huge, right? Because at the time, I mean, we run a company, right? So we always have to send a wire transfer to foreign countries. Right? Until today, right? If you send a wire transfer, right, to a foreign companies, right, at least it takes a day, right? Normal, if it is like weekend, it takes 2 to 3 days, right? But the moment that I use like a blockchain, right, to send fund, my friends can get it, right? Like in like a minute, right? If the gas fee is low, maybe in like a few seconds, right? So that was the moment that, oh shit, this is huge, right? Blockchain is actually useful, right? That was a moment that kind of like convinced me to put my personal wealth, right, and also my money, right, into on chain, right? That's number one, right? And then for NFT is another story, right? That was when Twitter started to support like NFT as a PFP, as a profile picture. And then I was like, shit. I mean, in the past, even if you have a Lambo, right, you can't flex your Lambo to the world. Right now, if you buy a Bored Ape or Punk, right, you actually can tell the world that you have millions of dollars so that you are willing to buy an image, right, to flex that you are rich, right? That was a moment, right? Because we have been working on social media for so long, we understand that vanity is actually one of the main driver for people to continue to be active on social, right? So that was the moment that I started to understand NFT as well. So I'm very, very late to crypto, right? But the good thing is I understand the core concept of it, right? So that despite the price fluctuation and stuff, I still believe that this can become a thing, right? So that's why we started our company, our Web3 company. I would say at a pretty bad time. I mean, we are pretty notorious of launching product during the bad market. Yeah, so we launched our NFT collection. Right, I think a few weeks after Luna crash. Right, so that was really a bad time, right? And that's why I feel like, oh, people think that this market is bad, right? Yeah, you haven't seen Luna. Yeah, yeah, and also FTX. Yeah.
A lot of large global companies sometimes find it a bit hard to navigate in Web3, right? Was it difficult to convince your co-founders and your existing investors that you wanted to do this?
No, because for my co-founders, I think they're very good people, right? They believe in me, right? That's why that means that they're not that smart, right? So they believe in me, right? But the thing is, we always have a philosophy that, oh, maybe we should put like 20% of our resources to try something new, right? I think this is just one of the many 20% that we try, and then luckily this time it works, right? That's number one. Number two is comparing to other companies, right? I think when you mentioned like Reddit or like Twitter or other bigger companies like Facebook, right? I think most of the time it's not the founder who drives the Web3 innovation, right? For me, because I believe in it, because I use it, I use the blockchain, right? That's why I try to work on it. Yeah, and and that's also due to my personal experience, right? Because after my first son he passed away, I kind of like take a 6 months leave, and then Nigel was like, I mean, with or without me, it can still run, right? Because it's like a well-run machine, right, for some time, right? But what I'm just getting into the rabbit hole of like crypto, of like NFT. There was like, shit, this is so fun, right? And then that's why I asked my co-founder, hey, maybe we should explore more in Web3. Maybe we can try to spend some money, right, to learn, to kind of like pay to learn, right, pay, right, to learn. Yeah, so yeah, that was how we started. Yeah, it's not that hard. Yeah, I think I'm lucky again. I'm very lucky, right, to have my co-founders. Yeah.
And I think this whole launch and iterate phase, you did it multiple times with 9gag, with every new country launch, and also with Memeland, coming straight in the market. If you can pattern match the early, user activity and community engagement, how different or similar was launching a new market for 9gag and for Memeland?
I think it's very, very different, right? Because for Web3, everything is almost like money first, right? If you can't explain why it can make money, right, to the holders, to the community, they actually don't care. I mean, they say they care, but they actually don't care, right? So I think that part is very, very different, right? That's number one for us. Number two is in the past for Niger, it's always free, right? So we have a lot of users, right? And we have like 200 million followers across the world, right? And that is that kind of like make it easy, right? Because I mean, you just keep working, right? I think of course the revenue fluctuates, right? Because it's by advertising, right? But at the end of the day, the team, they can focus on the work, right? Yeah. Meanwhile, for Web3, I mean, because people have to pay, right, to buy your NFT, to buy your token. Yeah. Actually, people have way higher standard towards the team. They are way more demanding, right? They are more annoying, right? Yeah. Because if you are like a free user and you send me or you say foul language to me, yeah, I just ban you. Right now, because you are a holder, right? I can't just ban you right away, right? Because they said, oh, because you can't take criticism and shit like that, right? So I think that's very, very different. Yeah.
There's a popular book called What Money Come By, and basically what it talks about is in a market economy, sometimes once you introduce money, it changes the whole concept and motivations, right? How different it is here, like you said, meme coin, and in crypto, money is always first, right? How does it affect the tools you have to incentivize certain actions, disincentivize certain actions, compared to when 9gag, it was like badges, it was banning people?
I would say that I think people works for incentives, right? It's just that sometimes it's like monetary incentive. Sometimes it's like vanity incentive, right? So I would say that people are always very incentive driven, right? It's kind of like how you teach a kid, right? Most of the time they learn the fastest, right? If you give them some incentives, right? Yeah, I feel like in Web3, uh, uh, it kind of make it very naked, right? Because it's always money, 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 right? When your price is up, you are a good founder. When your price is down, you are a fucker, right? You're a rucker, right? So I think that is something that we kind of understand quite early on, right? Because I bought a lot of NFTs, right? That's why I was down bad, right? So I had the down bad experience and also part of kind of like understand what the community thinks, right? Before we launch our project, right? I would say that I'm probably one of the Web3 founders that spend the most money to buy NFT, right? I wouldn't say to buy tokens, right? But for NFT, I probably are one of the big spender, right? But I think that also kind of like build up my, I would say, like empathy, right, towards the community more, right? So everything that we try to do in our project, right, we always try to go community first, right? And maybe that's one of the reasons we kind of like survive the so-called like NFT winter, crypto winter, whatever winter it is. Yeah, and but at the end of the day, I feel like incentive gets people in, right? But ultimately, they need to believe in you, right, so that they can stay, right? And I wouldn't say that they can stay, they will stay forever, right? But at least during some price fluctuation and stuff, right? They believe in you so that they can be still, right? They don't have to, I just sell because I panic sell and stuff like that, right? So when you look at Memeland, right, our NFT, our token price, of course, there are price fluctuation, but the core, I would say, community, I think they still believe in what we are doing, right? And also that's important for us to keep talking about the long-term vision, right, instead of just the price. When you look at some projects, they keep talking about the price and they flex the price when the price is high. Usually, when the price is low, then the team won't do anything, right? The community will hate them, right? Because it's almost like when you are a person, right? You keep flexing your wealth. I mean, people will come to you because you're rich, right? But they will leave, right? When you don't have money anymore, right? So I would say that it's a necessary condition, right, to build a good company, right, in Web3, when you can think about a good incentive system. But I think the sufficient condition is, you need to have some vision. Right? You have to launch product. You have to get the trust from people. Now, I think those are the things that a company needs. Yeah.
And I think a big part about Web3 and also the current movement is, of course, with IP rights, revenue share. I've got a tough one, which is how does that affect the business in 9gag, right? Because I think right now, in terms of creating memes or sharing images, it is a bit more blurred, right? How does your experience in Web3 affect the Web2 business?
Actually, I would say that they kind of like affect each other, right? Because I mean, first of all, I think there's no Web3 without Web2, right? There's no Web2 without Web1. And actually, people really don't give a fuck about all this like definition, right? They just use a product, right? They just buy your stuff. Yeah. And that's why I think all this experience that we have, right? Building community and then working with creators, actually, it helped us to launch our Web3 company more easily. But because we have been working with community for a long time, right? We know how annoying people are, right? And we know how annoying people are, even they don't pay you, right? So somehow when our holders actually spend money, right, to buy our NFT, it's almost like it's their right to be annoying, right? I think that's why I don't have a mental issue and stuff. And when people say that, oh, you're shit, right? Yeah, and stuff like that, I actually don't care, right? Because we have seen how people can become, right, when they're over invested, right? Because even when people don't spend money, right, they can be very annoying because they feel very entitled. Hey, I use your website, I'm your traffic, right, and stuff like that, right? So I would say that the Web2 stuff is actually not that challenging, right? Because I mean, for IP and stuff, these days, I think new generation of creators, they actually care more about distribution than the rights, right? And I think most of the platforms, right, these days they will give credit to the original creators, and creators know that hey, they don't make money from the content, right? They make money from the side stuff related to their content, right? From their personal brand and stuff like that, right? So I would say that on the Web2 side, things are evolving as well, right? And then for Web3, I would say that we need something more concrete, right? In a way that, hey, people are learning pretty fast, right? Because when you spend money to learn, you actually learn the fastest, right? I think pay to learn is the best way, right? To make sure that you do the job, right? You do the learning, right? For example, hey, if you just go to the gym, right, by yourself, you probably don't go that much, right? But if you spend money to buy a gym membership, to have a personal trainer, you probably you will do the gym more. We go to gym more, right? I think stuff like this is why Web3, you can see that the community and also the team, they have to evolve very, very fast, right? But sometimes when you try to solve some real problems and stuff, then you have to go back to the Web2 world. I think that would be, I think somehow that's the clash and also the main challenges that we face right now. Yeah.
Because you talked about balancing the expectation of community, right? Last year this time we did a panel with you and Luca,
Yep.
and there's this very popular quote that you mentioned. You said that my wife asked me why I don't have sex with her anymore, and I tell it's because the community fucks me every day. Even today, when I meet people, they always remind me, say, "Oh my God, Ray said this like legendary quote to you." Is there any difference in managing a 9gag community member compared to a Memeland community member?
Yeah, 100%, right? I seldom meet our Nugget holders, our users, right?
Yeah.
And when I meet them, right, they are actually most of the time they're very happy.
Yeah.
Right. And right now, for example, this morning, right, we had a brunch, right, with our MVP holders, right. I mean, the first thing that asked me, hey Ray, what's the alpha? Right? When are you launching the next thing? Right? I think it's very, very different. The whole mindset is very different. Because when I get, they actually don't pay, right? So for them, we are the one who gives, right? So they like us, right? Because we keep giving, right? For Web3, even though we give, they feel like because they spend money, right, to buy, and maybe they buy high, right, and although the money doesn't go to us, but they still feel like we own them, right? I think all this kind of stuff, I think it actually makes working Web3 more challenging, right? Especially for inexperienced team. I think for us, it's relatively okay because we understand, hey, we understand what we want to do. We kind of understand that, okay, people are demanding because they have expectation, right? But ultimately, we understand that, if they really, really don't like you, they probably will have sell already. If they still kind of like criticize you, if they still hold on to your NFT, to your token, maybe they still have expectation, right? It's almost like these days, I feel like, uh, you just have like thousands of Asian parents to you. They have like high expectation, right? And they call you son of bitches, right? Even though they gave birth to you and stuff like that. I think it's kind of like that. Right? I think that's why when you see most of the top exchange, most of the top crypto projects, right? They're Asian founders, right? How come they could become successful? Because they all have Asian parents, and then they are used to like high expectation mode, right? And maybe that's one of the reason, right? Of course, there are some projects that are from Western founders and stuff, right? But you can see that the way that they deal with communities is quite different. Yeah.
And having built 9gag and Memeland, which are probably the largest in their category, how do you split your time between two right now?
I spend most of my time in Web3. As I mentioned, 9gag is almost like a auto run, right? So I don't have to spend that much time. Right? And I also believe that Web3 is something that needs me more than 9gag. Right? So because I think Web3 is still pretty new, and also it's pretty expensive to try and learn things, right? Because you have to spend real money to try and learn, right? So it takes time for us to hire good people, right, to join our team. For example, we just hire Sita, right, to join our marketing team, right? But actually, who knows like Web3 marketing, right? Yeah, so I think stuff like this, I think it takes time to build. That's why as a founder, we have to be more hands-on, right? So I think that's the challenge, yeah.
You mentioned about the skill sets of a founder. I found this quote that your brother actually said of you, right? He said that Ray is someone who stands out of the crowd easily. He is a bright star and always thinks out of the box, but he lacks the fundamental element of success, perseverance. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, first of all, I don't remember he said that. Second of all, I think he's right. Yeah, I think I wouldn't say not lack the perseverance, right? It's more like when you are the guy who are always fascinated by new ideas, right? You usually don't have the consistency and also patience, right, to work on that. Right. That's why I have co-founders, right? That's why I have a team, right? If it is just by me, probably I could keep launching projects and stuff like that, right? But right now, because we have a team, then sometimes when you have like new ideas, and then for example, like Sam, right, NFT stacks, right? Hey Ray, how is it related to existing Memeland vision, right? I think we need like different kinds of people in your team, so that they can voice out when you kind of like are making a bad decision. Right? This is also something that we encourage, and our team is no matter what your role, no matter what your grade, right? Yeah, as long as your opinion, right, is like valuable to the company, just voice out, right? Your value of opinion doesn't depend on your payroll, right? It doesn't depend on your salary, all right? So I think those are things that we try to encourage, yeah.
As we come to the tail end, I want to talk a bit more about Ray. You mentioned about this Stoic saying before, and it really baffles me because it left a deep impression. You said that men should fear fame as pigs fear fattening. I had to read that 2 or 3 times to really understand that, right? And I think even today, right, I think most people can say that you're a very down to earth, very honest person. Even when you wanted to find the washroom, you don't trouble people, you find it yourself, you walk down a few levels. How has that phrase kind of like affected you in the last few years?
I didn't know that I said such a wise words. Right? I think I bullshit all the time. So a lot of the times I say things that I don't even remember. Right. So don't quote me on stuff that I said. Yeah. Yeah. But I think a lot of because as I mentioned, I love reading books. Right. I think there are a lot of good books. Right. Of course, like Bible. Right. Of course, like some books about Stoicism. Right. And the thing is, it's not about how they can teach you to solve like everyday problems, right? But they kind of teach you the high level thinking, where this is how what people care, right? When it's like when actually they become very, very successful when they are dying and stuff like that, right? I think to me, due to my personal experience, a lot of the things don't matter to me. Right. And I try to do my best, not because I just want to make more money. Right? I mean, of course, I want more money, right? But that's not the goal, right? Just part of the side product, right? That we do what we do, right? So to me, yeah, the fame and stuff is not that important. I mean, even if, for example, like I have a X account called I Get CEO, right? I only started that account because of Web3. Right, because I look at all these like project founders, right? They're also active on Twitter and stuff. They all keep shit posting, and then all this like wisdom, like long posts and stuff like that, right? Then I will say, why would people love that, right? Oh, maybe because when we talk about permissionless and trust us in Web3, but we actually have to trust that team a lot, right? Before give them thousands of dollars, right? Oh, maybe that's why they love a very visible founder, and that was the reason why I created my personal Twitter, right? And the thing is, I don't even love to post, right? But because of that, I have to kind of like figure out something to post and stuff, right? So to me, fame doesn't matter, right? And most of the time, I don't even go to events. I don't even go to parties, right? And people want to take picture with me. I never really want to take picture with them, right? But and not to mention because they take very ugly picture of me, right? So I think that's the thing, right? To me, fame actually really doesn't matter, right? And I mean, you can bring it to your grave anyway, right? And you can't really leave it to your children anyway. I think even money is more useful because if you have a lot of money, right, you can still leave some inheritance to them, right? But for fame, let's say, oh, you are like Jackie Chan. No, let's say I'm Jackie Chan, right? I mean, the fame may not bring that much like benefit, right, to the child and stuff, right? Yeah, so I feel like fame is probably the least important like stuff to me, right? Because I believe that okay, solving real problems, creating impact, right, including financial impact, including like community impact, maybe that's more important. Yeah.
You've probably been asked many times to give, young people advice. What's a unconventional advice you would give to young people who are starting out a career in a startup, climbing the ladder?
This is a question that people always ask, right? I was doing a sharing at the Christian Accounting Association in Hong Kong like a week ago, right? They had exactly the same question, and then actually had to think more, right? Because in the past, my advice would be okay, don't believe in anyone's advice, right? Because anyone have their own experience and stuff like that, right? But this time, and because of that question, I actually sit down and think about it, right? Maybe it's good to zoom out, right? Yeah, zoom out, right? And especially for younger people, right? Because to them, everything seems so important, right? Remember the first time that you get a girlfriend, right? That girlfriend seems so important, right? But after you break up for a few times, breakup is breakup, right? And then another week you get a new girlfriend, right? If you are handsome like you, right? So I think that I think that I think our perspective can change, right? If we actually can zoom out, right? Most of the things that seems very important right now is not important even after a week, right? Definitely not important after like a year, 10 year, right? If we actually can zoom out, we can focus on the big picture, right? We can also focus on the things that are really, really important in our life, right? So maybe the so-called advice would be like zoom out, right? Zoom out on a lot of things that you think that is very important, right? Especially on all these like failure and stuff. When you zoom out, it doesn't matter, right? For example, in Hong Kong, in the past there were like 2 public exams for students, right? Right now there is only one. I think the media make it sound like the biggest thing. Right? If you are a student that got like 10A at the exam or failed at the public exam, but when you zoom out, like when you after you get to work for a few years, no one fucking ask for your exam result. And for people who still talk about the school exam result, they're losers, right? Because the golden age was in the past, right? It's not in the future, right? So I think that maybe zoom out would be my so-called advice, especially to younger people.
Yep.
Yeah.
And on that same note, what would you say to, that 18, 20-year-old Ray when he was doing electrical review websites, he was doing character websites, and he never got traction, right? Now looking back with all the experience, what would you have told him back then?
I would just ask him to buy Bitcoin. Yeah. I think that would be more meaningful than building any companies, right? So I think actually, yeah, I mean, jokes aside, right? I didn't think about that much. Right? People love to write this kind of post, right? Oh, it's advice to my young self, right? I think it's important, right? Because we have to review, right? But most of the time, I think what's more important is how can we learn from other people's experience so that we don't have to repeat their mistakes, right? That's number one. Number two, a trick that I like to do is I don't give my advice to my younger self. I actually try to give advice to myself. It's almost like when we think about a problem, right? Oh, let's say, okay, whether we want to rug pull Memeland, right? If it's like first person view, right, then it's very easy. Oh, shit, let's rug pull right now, right? We can launch another project under a non-name and stuff like that, right? Then we can still make a few millions or maybe like tens of $1 million, right? But if you talk to a Ray, like there's another Ray sitting next to me, if I'm a founder and I ask Ray, hey, what's your advice? Right? Should I rug Memeland? He probably say no, right? Because hey, you have spent so much time and so many people are depending on you, right? And you have a community, right? They are actually human beings, right? And then they spend real money into your projects. You should not do that, right? So it's not even like angel and devil. It's basically just Ray and another Ray. And I feel like people make better decision when they think from a third person perspective, right? Because most of the time when you have to give advice to other people, you actually have a clear mind, right? But when you think about the problems for yourself, you actually get confused all the time, right? So I don't give advice to my young self. Try to give advice to the current self. Yeah.
You mentioned at the start of the show that you had this starstruck moment in YC where you met Sam Altman, Gary. It's a little bit for me right now because not you as a person, but your work has always been around. So I just want to say thanks for coming on the show and thanks for entertaining me when I've been pooping over the years.
Yep, I feel sorry for you, and I feel sorry for all the generation who actually read NiGet, right? Because we took away your productivity. I think maybe you could be the next Elon Musk if you don't spend that much time on NiGet.
Thanks for coming on the show, Ray. Thank you.